Today, we are giving you a fresh twist on some traditional Thanksgiving dishes. Aline, I'm gonna start with you because you do something pretty cool. First of all, she's not even from the US, she's from France, and she's gone all out for Thanksgiving.
We moved to the United States in 1988, and one of the first things my mom wanted to do was for us to feel at home in the United States. So she said, first Thanksgiving, we're gonna do it à l'américaine. So she set out to make the best turkey ever, and we came to realize that our family's wine, Chateau Coutet, paired extremely well with turkey. Since 2008, since I arrived at the vineyard, we started putting together an annual all Coutet Thanksgiving menu. Our region does make sweet wines, but there's such liveliness to these wines, some savory characteristic that you can easily pair these wines with a main course. So I love to call these wines gold wines or just sweet wines.
Thanksgiving is probably the most important holiday for wine that, in my experience, both as a sommelier in restaurants and now running a retail shop. And people really, that's their chance where they know that the spotlight is on them and it's their chance to impress their family or at least just not screw up. And as more and more people become better educated in wine, they want to raise the bar. And I think this is such a cool way to show people that it doesn't have to always be Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Noir.
I want to start off with, I call it in America an aperitif, but you call it something very fancy.
Aperitif. The first wine to kind of get ourselves into the spirit of Thanksgiving, our new dry white 2011 of Opalie de Chateau Coutet. It's a 50% Sémillon, 50% Sauvignon Blanc blend. You really have this feeling of warmth that's going to come with this wine, which will match the colder weather, the football weather that we associate with Thanksgiving.
Except for in California, because we're just perfect all year long. We're like, what do you mean, football weather? No, I'm kidding. Let's go with our first wine and our first dish.
Most people think bread pudding and they think dessert. This one is not sweet with sugar. It's sweet with butternut squash and some applewood smoked bacon. I used a sweeter style bread, kind of like a brioche, and it's topped with Gruyere cheese.
Because this has some weight with the bacon, I decided to pair this with the Chateau Coutet 2006 vintage. The particularities of that vintage is that we've got a full body wine, and I think it's going to complement really well the fullness of a dish composed with bacon.
Now, holy smokes. Sarah, tell us about this turkey, the bird.
So the bird is brined overnight. Most turkeys are between 11 pounds and 14 pounds, so you brine them for a full 24 hours. And in it is pomegranate juice. That actually stains the bird a little bit darker so that when you roast it, it gets that golden color. But more importantly, brined with maple syrup and pomegranate juice, both of which create a great glaze that I think pairs so great with the wine.
I had a hard time picking a wine because I really think you could go two ways with this. First, with an older vintage like our Chateau Coutet 1998, where you're going to get some warm notes, lots of gingerbread components, but always this very fresh characteristic. You're going to have a nice contrast with the warmer notes that you're going to find in a turkey. The other way you could go is with a 2004 vintage. It's going to have a lot of orange marmalade characteristic with also the gingerbread because of its age. Those spicy notes are going to come out through a little bit more with this particular vintage with the turkey, so I think it's going to go really well as well. So.
And Erin, in your experience with vintages, is that something that someone would actually ask you about, hey, I want to bring this vintage versus that vintage and maybe do a vintage tasting?
Sure, definitely. And the average person, when they go out and buy a bottle of wine, they're going to consume it within 24 hours or 48 hours of purchase. So it really is a luxury to be able to try some bottle age. It just adds such a great element to a meal and adds so much to food pairing. We've got family at the table. Sometimes you need some conversation to keep the meal going, right? So
good point, Erin, because we're sort of okay, well, we ate the turkey, now what?
Yeah, but oh boy, remember when we went on that trip back in 2004 and oh sweetheart, this was our first date year or an anniversary or the birth of a child. I love vintage wines for that reason. It helps the conversation.
Nobody wants to talk about the awkward things that can come up at the Thanksgiving dinner. We all know about that one. Moving right along.
So these are cheese gougères. A gougère is a savory pâte à choux batter. Pâte à choux would be something similar to an eclair batter. Eclairs have sugar in them though. These have no sugar. This is made with cheddar cheese or Gruyere cheese. They're piped just onto a sheet pan and into a hot oven for less than 10 minutes. baked and they look just like that. We're gonna fill these with a goat cheese and sweet potato mousse.
I picked the Chateau Coutet 2008 vintage because I was thinking about the cheese. The 2008 has this liveliness to it that I think is going to complement quite well the texture of that particular cheese.
For dessert, we went a lighter route. You just ate a ton of food. We did kind of a lighter semolina cake. It's buttermilk, semolina, and then topped with caramelized pears.
The inspiration for this pairing was actually the caramelized pears. The 2010 vintage is very fresh. It's a big vintage, and you're going to find some pears, some apricots, as well as some pineapples.
Dessert wine or golden wines, it is a little bit of an uncharted territory for a lot of people. It can seem intimidating, and it's that section of the wine shop that you may not go to or the section of the wine list that you may avoid. But I mean, there's as many beautiful options there as there could be in any other part of your wine shop. So yeah, start pulling corks and find out what you like.
I love it. Start pulling corks. That is our only when we're invited over. Do not pull them before we get there. Do you have some sort of way of saying Happy Thanksgiving or anything like that over there in France and Bordeaux?
Joyeux Thanksgiving. And for a French twist to your Thanksgiving, don't forget Chateau Coutet.
How do you say that in French?
N'oubliez pas votre Chateau Coutet pour un joyeux Thanksgiving, la fête de remerciement.
What she said. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Santé!
Santé!